In our day-to-day life, we face small actions that can make a big difference for the environment and for our pocket. For example, when choosing lighting for the home, did you know that LED bulbs can be a great saving over conventional bulbs? They consume less, so having them turned on for the same length of time means less spending at the end of the month. This way, we can save almost $220 a year while we contribute to energy savings. For short trips, the bicycle is a better option than the car. Aside from saving money on gas, the bicycle is a zero-emissions vehicle, while the car consumption increases as you go, emitting up to 1.7 kilograms of carbon dioxide every 10 kilometers. In the kitchen, we can also reduce costs. A simple action like covering the pot while cooking is a saving of 25%. Or even 50% if we use the pressure cooker. This way, we can save the money here covering the pot and using the pressure cooker. We continue taking care in the kitchen. Recycling used oil prevents severe environmental damage. Did you know that 1 liter of oil pollutes 1,000 liters of water? Furthermore, the recycled oil can be used to make soap, fertilizer, or fuel. When shopping, we can contribute to sustainability. Always look at clothing labels and buy fair trade products which guarantee respect for biodiversity and the workers who have made the garment.
Tuwing nakakatanggap ng consumer complaint, ang DTI ay fully committed na ma-resolve ang issue. Ito ay naaayon sa Department Administrative Order No. 1302, Series of 2013, or Rules on Mediation and Resolution of Increased Complaints for cases filed under DTI.
Para sa mga complaints na sakop ng DTI, mag-fill up lamang ng complaint form at isubmit sa Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau. Ito'y magkakaroon ng isang mediation process na kung saan ang complainant at respondent ay pinaghaharap upang magkaroon ng amicable settlement o kasunduan.
Sa ilalim ng Consumer Act of the Philippines, ang mga mamimili ay may karapatang humingi ng repair, replacement, or refund para sa depektibong produkto o kung sila ay naka-experience ng imperfect service.
Laging i-check kung maayos ang produkto at serbisyo na nabili.
Paano kayo natulungan ng DTI sa iyong consumer complaint?
Naging maayos ang proseso ng mediation at nagkaroon ng amicable settlement.
Naging malinaw sa akin ang karapatan ko bilang mamimili.
Napalitan ang defective product na nabili ko.
Nag-email ako ng complaint at sinagot agad ako ng DTI.
Tandaan, kapag ang nabiling produkto ay depektibo, maaaring sumangguni sa customer service ng store o sa tamang ahensya ng gobyerno.
Magandang umaga! Mukhang maganda ang barong dito, ate. Saan ba yan gawa? Ginawa yan sa aming probinsya, ma'am. Ang tela po ay gawa sa Josepina, kaya makakasiguro kayo na maganda ang kalidad niyan. Sa itsura at pagkakayari pa lang, mukhang gawa nga ito sa mataas na kalidad ng tela. Pasensya na kayo sa pagiging mausisa ko. Kailangan lang maging mas maingat na ngayon dahil nagkalat na ang mga produktong hindi maayos ang pagkakagawa. Naku, tama lang po ang ginagawa nyo. mabuti na maging maingat at matalino sa mga binibili natin ngayon. Tulad ni Marie, nararapat lang na maging mapanuri ka bilang mamimili para masigurong ang mga produkto o serbisyo na binabayaran mo ay naayon sa Consumer Act of the Philippines. Kailangan tayong batas na nagtatakda ng panuntunan pagdating sa mapanlinlang, hindi makatwiran at hindi patas na kalakalan. Itinuturing na panlilinlang ang paglalagay ng benepisyo o sangkap sa label na wala naman sa mismong produkto. Ang produktong ibinebenta at sinasabing ito ay sumusunod sa pamantayan, may taglay na kalidad, uri o modelo, subalit ang katotohanan ay wala, ito ay isang uri ng panlilinlang. Pati na rin ang mga produktong na luma o segunda mano pero ibinebenta bilang brand new. Itinuturing na panlilinlang ang pagsasabi na maaaring bilhin ng produkto o serbisyo pero hindi naman pala maaari. Ang ibinebentang produkto na naiiba sa mga patalastas ay panlilinlang din. Itinuturing na panlilinlang kapag sinabi mong may inilagay ka o ginawa sa produktong binili pero ang totoo ay wala naman. Kapag sinabi na kailangang ayusin ang produktong nabili mo, subalit ang katotohanan ay hindi naman kailangang ayusin, ito ay panlilinlang din. Itinuturing na panlilinlang kapag sinabi ng nagbebenta na ang presyo ng produkto ay sulit dahil makakamura ka, subalit ang katotohanan ay wala naman itong pinakaiba. Ang pagsasabi na mayroon o walang warranty ang isang produkto o ang paglalagay ng disclaimer of warranties ay isang panlilinlang kung mali ang warranty terms and provision nito. Itinuturing na panlilinlang ang paggamit ng imahe o pangalan ng isang tao, association o grupo upang magbukha na suportado nila ang ibinibentang produkto, subalit hindi naman. Ang Consumer Act of the Philippines ay mayroon ding mga panuntunan para maprotektahan lalo na ang mga mamimili na may kapansanan o ang mga taong hindi marunong bumasa at sumulat laban sa mapagsamantalang kalakalan. Kabilang narito ang pagpilit na pumirma sa isang kasunduan kahit hindi mo naiintindihan ang mga nilalaman nito. Kaya ipinapayo na huwag pumirma sa isang dokumento kung hindi mo ito lubos na nauunawaan. Itinuturing na hindi makatwira kapag itinaas ng nagbebenta ang presyo ng isang produkto para sa piling mamimili lamang. Hindi makatwira ng pagkumbinse na pumasok sa isang kasunduan kahit alam ng nagbebenta na wala sa kakayahan ng mamimili na bayaran ito. Ang pagpasok sa isang kasunduan na ang makikinabang lamang ay ang nagbebenta ay hindi rin patas. Maaari mong iulat ang mga mapanlinlang o hindi patas na pagbebenta o kalakalan sa mga wastong ahensya ng pamahalaan. Tandaan, maging mapagmatsyag at gawa ng aksyon ang hindi patas na pagbebenta.
Kapag bumibili, hinahanap mo ba ang PS Mark o ICC sticker?
PS Mark? Hindi ko alam yun eh. Ha?
PS Smart?
Meron bang ganon? Parang hindi naman ata lahat ganon.
Parang sa hardware lang ata meron nun.
Hindi ko tinitingnan.
Minsan, depende. Kung binibili ko yung appliances, tinitinan ko yung PS Smart.
PS Smart? Parang ano na. May mga sticker.
Yun yung pang safety, di ba? Usually, hindi ko na rin na-check yun eh.
Nako mga consumers, huwag baliwalain ang PS Mark at ICC sticker na makikita sa mga produkto. Maging matalino at mapanuri upang makasiguro na dekalidad at ligtas gamitin ang produktong ating bibilhin.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. To all our participants sa Zoom and to everyone joining us via Facebook Live, welcome to our 157th session ng Consumer Care Webinar. You can still invite your family, friends, and colleagues po to join this webinar and share the Zoom link. Muli pong nagbabalik ang paborito ninyong webinar series tuwing Martes, ang DTI Consumer Care Webinar. Para po sa ating bagong participants, ang programa pong ito ay inilunsad ng DTI Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau upang makapagbigay ng kaalaman tungkol sa mga napapanahong paksa na makakatulong sa atin para tayo ay maging mapanuri, wais at malayang mamimili. I am Una May Mortejo from the Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau and I will be your host for today. Para sa buwan ng Marso, we are celebrating the World Consumer Rights Day with the theme, Fair Digital Finance. We will start the celebration by having one of our agency partners in consumer protection in today's webinar, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas o BSP. Pag-uusapan din po natin sa mga susunod na webinars ngayong Marso, ang financial literacy tips, e-payment platforms, tips for taxpayers, managing credit cards and maintaining good credit standing and deposit insurance coverage program. Manatili pong nakatutok sa ating Consumer Care Webinar Series tuwing Martes at sa DTI Consumer Care Facebook page para sa iba pang detalye at announcements. Para sa ating webinar ngayong umaga, tatalakayin po natin ang Consumer Protection and Digital Financial Services. But before we begin, we would like to give some reminders. Please be informed that this webinar session is being recorded. So by continuing your participation, you are also consenting that you may be recorded. We are encouraging everyone to please stay until the end of this webinar at sabay-sabay tayong matuto sa topic natin ngayong umaga. Ang mga sumusunod na reminders po ay para masiguro na smooth ang ating session. Mangyaring palitan po ang format ng inyong pangalan, maaaring consumer, space your complete name, or pangalan o acronym ng inyong kumpanya, then your complete name. Please also turn off your mic and video during the webinar session unless you are requested by the moderator to speak. If you have any questions and comments naman po, we are encouraging everyone to click the raise hand button to directly address the speaker during the Q&A portion, or you may also send in your questions through the chat box. Lastly, para sa mga naka-touch screen device, please avoid drawing or making annotations on the screen para hindi po ma-distract ang ibang mga participants, lalong-lalo na po ang ating speaker. So without further ado, let us begin this webinar session by singing the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by the invocation.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa dagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinagang tulang awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang ay di magdidinig, luma ng araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo, ang hindi kaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing as we are gathered together in this webinar. May your blessings of wisdom and guidance be upon us all for the sharing and impartation of knowledge and skills by our resource speakers, facilitators, and moderators. Bless also the participants so that they would be able to glean the information from this activity and share what we have learned in the spirit of your generosity. Lord, we bring you our prayers, our commitment, our gifts to you this day. Let us who have a keen dedication and awareness of your creation have courage and conviction that we are able to contribute to the sustainability of the earth. Inspire us as we make choices so that we will recognize the impact our lives have on our environment and our human family around the globe. Pour out your blessings upon us today, Lord. May each of our actions reveal our awareness that we are partners with you in the creation and sustainability of this earth that you have given to us to appreciate and enjoy. We ask this in the name of your Son. Amen.
Magandang umaga pong muli sa ating mga participants sa Zoom at sa mga nakatutok sa atin via Facebook Live. Nais po naming ibahagi sa inyo ang ating topic ngayong umaga na pinamagatang Consumer Protection in Digital Financial Services. Today's webinar aims to give consumers the knowledge, skills, and confidence to understand and evaluate the information they receive and empower them to make informed financial decisions. And by the end of the session, we hope that you will be able to learn how to handle any forms of fraud, may it be online or offline, which may affect your personal banking accounts and profiles. Also, we hope that you would learn about the efforts of the government on protecting consumers against electronic banking fraud and deception. To formally start our session for today, we would like to call the Assistant Director of the Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau, Attorney Cheryl G. Carbonell. Good morning po, Ediche.
Good morning, May, and good morning everyone sa lahat ng ating participants ngayon sa Zoom. And we are live also via our Consumer Care Facebook page. And for the first time, live tayo sa DTI YouTube channel. Thank you po, Director Trish and the KMIS team for making this possible. So, today is March 1, and for us in Metro Manila and in some areas, it's the start of yung 100% na tayong allowed ng operational capacity and venue capacity. And some say this is the start of the new normal. Even so, we still encourage you to please follow all the health and safety protocols na inilagay ng ating government para po magtuloy-tuloy pa rin yung ating pagbubukas ng ating economy at dumami pa rin yung bumalik yung mga trabaho na nawala during the pandemic. And also, please take your booster shots. So, we encourage you to do that. Yun po. So, sa CPG, mahalaga din ang March because March 15 particularly is World Consumer Rights Day. So, yung March 15 kasi was inspired by President John F. Kennedy, who sent a special message to the U.S. Congress noong March 15, 1962 to address formally the issue on consumer rights. So yan, a bit of history. So for this year po, ang theme ng ating World Consumer Rights Day is Fair Digital Finance. So expect po na ang ating mga webinars this month will focus on digital finance and consumer protection. And what better way not to start this webinar series this March by having with us the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And we are fortunate because Attorney Cha de Vera accommodated our request to give this talk today. And so without further ado, let's hear it from the BSP, from Attorney Cha, how we can protect our hard-earned money ngayon sa panahon ng digitalization, panahon ng digital finance. So what scams do we need to watch out for? What should we do and what we should not do so that we don't become victims of these scams? And what we should do if in case naman na mabiktima pa rin tayo ng mga scams na to. So to formally introduce our speaker, I now turn again the virtual floor over to May. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AD Che, for that insightful opening remarks. Now let us proceed with our program proper. Again, today we are very fortunate to have our capable speaker from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. She graduated from the University of the Philippines with a Bachelor of Arts degree major in Political Science. She finished her Bachelor of Laws at the Arellano Law School and completed her Master of Laws major in International Legal Studies at the Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. in 2006. She started her consumer protection work in the BSP when she was assigned to the Financial Consumer Protection Department in 2017. Currently, she heads the CPMCO, which handles BSP's consumer protection and market conduct work and programs. She oversees the design, coordination, and implementation of consumer protection programs and is also involved in research and development of consumer protection and market conduct policies, regulation, and legislative measures. She is Attorney Sharina B. De Vera. Good morning po, Director De Vera. The virtual floor is now yours.
Hi, good morning, May, and good morning, Attorney Che. And of course, to our participants, those who are watching this consumer care webinar series. So thank you also to DTI for, of course, inviting us and to participate in this very educational and informative webinar series, especially so that we are now celebrating, sabi nga ni Attorney Che, this March 15, the Consumer Rights Day. And with the theme of fair digital finance. So that's why I'm here to speak about some of the issues and possibly tips on what our consumers can do, especially if they become victim of scams. So to start off with my presentation, kindly share, please. Okay, so next slide, please. So let me now first share with you the consumer protection mandate of the Bangko Sentral. So as you can see, in 2019, nagkaroon na kami ng mandate on consumer protection, which is, let me read this. In the attainment of its objective, the BSP shall promote broad and convenient access to high-quality financial services and consider the interest of the general public. So this is now the consumer protection mandate of the Bangko Sentral under Republic Act 11211. So very new lang, relatively new lang siya kasi this was passed in 2019. And this is now the basis of our consumer protection initiatives and programs. So very timely that we talk about digital financial services, because as you all can see and have seen, that especially during the pandemic, di ba, nakita naman natin ang pagtaas ng paggamit ng mga digital financial services. This could strongly indicate that Filipino consumers are already moving away from conventional cash payments towards digital payments. So makikita niyo rin naman yan. I'm sure marami sa inyo ang gumagamit na ng mga digital or e-payments pag nagsa-shopping or even sa pagbayad ng mga tuition or other utilities. So we use the digital payment platforms. As you can see also, from 2018 to 2020, we witnessed a continuous rise in the share of digital payments in the country. So with the volume growing significantly from 10% in 2018 to 20.1% in 2020. And then by 2023, our target is to convert 50% of the total volume of retail payments into digital form. So para naman ma-achieve natin yan, na maging 50% na nga ng ating mga payments ay maging through digital form, of course, we need the support of the public and the consumers para gumamit talaga tayo ng digital payments sa ating mga transactions. For the next slide, please. Okay. So let me just share with you some of the financial institutions under the BSP supervision. So as you can see on the slide, we have the universal banks, thrift banks, money service businesses. We also have e-money issuers. Yung examples nito are yung GCash, FameHaya, pawn shops. We also have cooperative banks. And then we have very recently lang yung mga digital banks. And we also have the non-banks with quasi-banking functions, remittance agents. We have NSSLAs. We also have virtual asset service providers, as well as operator of payment systems. So these are the institutions being supervised by the Bangko Sentral. Next slide, please. So as you can see, we also have partnerships with other financial regulators. So our other financial regulators are the Insurance Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and also the CDA or the Cooperative Development Authority in so far as supervising savings and credit cooperatives. And of course, we do have partnerships with DTI. So lahat ng mga regulators na to, may kanya-kanya tayong jurisdictions and kanya-kanya mga institutions na sinusupervise. So as you can see on your screen, under the SEC, they have the lending companies, finance companies, investment houses, security brokers, corporations, NGOs, and other foundations. While for Insurance Commission, of course, they regulate and supervise insurance companies, pre-need companies, mutual benefit associations, cooperative insurance societies. And for CDA, they have the savings and credit cooperatives. So these are some of the institutions being supervised by other financial regulators. Next slide, please. Okay. So for the BSP, ang parang pinaka-biblia namin when it comes to consumer protection is Circular 1048, which provides for the consumer protection framework. So as you can see on your slide, we have 5 consumer protection standards that should be adopted and complied with by our financial institutions or the financial institutions that we supervise. So the CP principles are as follows. We have the disclosure and transparency, protection of client information, effective recourse, fair treatment, and financial education and awareness. So when we say disclosure and transparency, ano ba ang expectation sa ating mga financial institutions? So dapat whenever a financial institution onboards a client, dapat dinidisclose niya kung ano ba yung mga terms and conditions. Malinaw yun na dapat pinapaliwanag sa mga kliyente nila. Sa simula pa lang ng transaction. Kunyari gusto niyo maging depositor, no, ng isang bangko. So kailangan yung bank i-explain niya ng maayos in very clear and simple language kung ano ba yung nasasakop nung deposit agreement, paano i-close, ilan ang interest. So yung mga ganong conditions, kailangan binibigay yan sa ating mga kliyente no, ng mga bangko. So included also under this principle is the right to be given a copy of the contract, of the terms and conditions, of your bills or your monthly statement of accounts. So kasama yan sa principle na disclosure and transparency. Now, when we go to protection of client information, dito naman is ang expectation is kung ano yung information na binigay mo sa inyong financial institution, dapat protected yun. No? Dapat i-secure nila. Dapat meron silang sistema na kung saan hindi magli-leak or hindi madi-disclose yung mga sensitive financial information ng bawat kliyente nila. So that's part of the protection of client information. This is also in compliance with our Data Privacy Act. So meron din tayong separate law on that. So nagko-complement lang yung ating consumer protection standard with the existing DPA. And then the next principle is fair treatment. So when you say fair treatment, dapat sa pag-onboard ng client, hindi maging unfair sa kanila yung mga terms and conditions. Dapat walang discrimination. Nakapaloob din dito sa Circular 1048 na yung mga underserved o kaya mga persons with disabilities, mga senior citizens, dapat binibigay sa kanila yung nararapat na accommodation, no? Na nakalagay din sa mga kanya-kanyang batas. No? But the expectation generally for fair treatment is that the terms and conditions, the practices, and the operations of financial institutions should be customer-centric and should do no harm, no, to the financial consumers. Kasi parang this is very important for the financial institutions kasi dapat yung mga consumers nila, mga clients nila ay mayroong trust, no, and confidence doon sa mga in-offer na services. So, sabi natin na dapat lahat ng financial institution or assistance mechanism nila. So dapat poong sorry, I was disconnected. Okay. So for under the effective recourse, the expectation is dapat lahat ng mga financial institution ay mayroong consumer assistance mechanism. So that's why we've issued several reminders to our financial institutions na dapat meron silang 24/7 na hotline, especially for fraud-related concerns or para naman sa mga credit cards, yung dapat meron silang dedicated hotline for lost cards. So yun kasama yun sa effective recourse na principle, no? So that is an expectation from all financial institutions. And also hindi lang dapat mayroong unit or may hotline. So of course dapat efficient and also timely din or mabilis yung pag-handle ng mga consumer complaints nila. And of course, lastly is financial education and awareness. So yung mga financial institutions natin, nire-require din natin sila na mag-conduct ng financial education and magkaroon ng mga awareness programs, not only to their clients but also to the public as a whole. No? Kasi kailangan din yan na malaman ng mga tao kung ano ba yung mga services, mga products na ino-offer ng mga financial institutions. So again, this is part of the consumer protection principles which are all embodied under Circular number 1048, no? Series of 2019. So may mga ibang provisions pa din doon sa Circular 1048, but as I've said, this is parang the Bible, no, of the BSP and also the financial institutions that we supervise na kailangan magkaroon sila ng consumer protection risk management system, and they also adhere to these 5 consumer protection principles. For next slide, please. So we now go to the more interesting part of this session. No? So as I've mentioned earlier, tumaas na talaga, no? Because of the pandemic, medyo na-push tayo, no? Na gumamit talaga ng mga digital payments or mag-transition to digital transactions. So of course, while tumaas yung paggamit natin ng mga digital payments and digital products and services, nandyan din yung kaakibat ng mga panluloko, yung tinatawag nating scams, no? Dahil nga nakita rin nila, parang sa mga scammers naman, nakita nila yung opportunity na kung saan makakakuha sila ng pera or makakakita sila, no? From this different types of digital financial services and products. Next slide, please. So let me just share with you, what is the definition of a scam. It is a fraudulent scheme typically committed to cheat a victim, giving money resulting in the victim's financial loss. So merong usually na financial loss on the part of the victim. So makikita niya sa slide, mga example siya ng scams. So these are the most common scams na naririnig nyo and na-experience ng mga financial consumers. So these are the phishing, spoofing, and vishing. These are actually called, these are the very common examples of social engineering schemes. So yun yung tinatawag, yun yung general term for them. So to discuss each one of these, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so phishing. Scammer is disguised as a legitimate financial institution, persuading you to reveal your PIN, account number, or other sensitive financial information. And then, pwedeng mangyari to sa iba't ibang paraan, which may include email, SMS, chat room, so mga message boards, mailing list, mga job search sites. So yan yung mga paraan kung saan nangyayari yung phishing. So pinaka-common dyan is yung sa email, no? So ang nangyayari is, for example, nakita nyo sa email ninyo, it's an email coming from your bank. For example, Bank A. No? Nagpadala sa inyo ng email, nakita nyo parang kaparehong-kapareho ng mga emails na nare-receive ninyo from your bank. And sinasabi doon na we are updating your information, your personal information. Please click this link. Otherwise, if you don't update your information, mako-close yung account niyo. So, isa yan sa mga examples. No? So, when you click that link, mariredirect kayo doon sa fake site, no? O yung site na ginawa ng scammer. Tapos hihingiin sa inyo doon yung mga financial information ninyo. Like your name, password, so birthday, etc. No? So once nakuha na nila yung information na yun, maa-access na rin nila yung account mo doon sa totoong bangko ninyo. And that's why makikita na lang ninyo is biglang magno-notify sa inyo yung legit na bangko ninyo na nagkaroon kayo ng mga transaction. Okay, nalipat yung funds ninyo to another person. So dahil ang nangyari kasi doon is na-take over ng scammer yung buong account ninyo. So kaya nagagawa niya na kahit ano para doon, para ma-manipulate niya, malipat niya yung funds ninyo, palitan even yung phone number ninyo na nakaregister doon. Kaya hindi rin kayo nakaka-receive usually ng OTPs, no? Which is part of yung multi-factor authentication or a security feature sana. Pero pag napasok na kasi yung account ninyo, then lahat ng information ninyo na-control na siya ng scammer. So that's what usually happens during phishing. So same din sa spoofing, nagsisearch kayo, tingnan ninyo, ito yung website ng bangko ko. And then, mag-i-input na kayo doon, magla-login kayo. And not knowing na yung website pala na yun is a fake website. So, that's spoofing. Ganon din, nakukuha rin nila yung inyong financial information. And natitake over nila yung inyong original or yung account talaga with your bank. Now, sa phishing naman, ito naman usually nasasabi natin na ito yung parang nabubudol kayo, no? Kasi tumatawag sa inyo na nagkaroon sila ng access sa mga phone numbers and then tsempuhan, natawagan kayo. And sometimes they are very maabilidad yung mga scammers natin. So marami na silang alam tungkol sa inyo, nakukuha nila yung personal information ninyo, tapos ipapa-confirm, and then sasabihin sa inyo, usually ang ginagawa nila is, this is from Bank A, yung account niyo po ay na-access, merong mga unauthorized transaction, kailangan po nating i-close. So, merong sense of urgency na nagpapanik kayo in such a way, and by doing that, nabibigay ninyo, nadi-disclose ninyo yung mga information ninyo. And not knowing na itong taong tumatawag is not really a representative of the bank. No? So nagpapanggap lang siya na employee o kaya representative ng bank, and then hinihingi sa inyo yung financial information ninyo para ma-access niya naman yung totoong account ninyo. So that's what happened. Ang phishing is through voice calls. No? Hindi lang naman to nangyayari doon sa mga employees ng bangko, but also sometimes ginagamit din nila yung mga government agencies. Sabihin nila, ako po ay si Mr. X, I'm from Bangko Sentral, kailangan po natin gawin to sa inyong account. Kaya merong mga iba galing sa PNP. So pati yung government agencies, ginagamit din itong mga scammers na to. So mag-ingat tayo sa mga ganitong types of scams. So now you know the 3 most common types of scams that are happening, especially with respect to your financial transactions or financial accounts. Next slide, please. Okay, so other types of scams naman ay yung advance fee fraud, or romance scams or impostor. So dito naman sa impostor scam, dito sa advance fee fraud, I'm sure kayo din in your lifetime naka-receive kayo ng mga, for example, text messages or even emails na sinasabi na nanalo kayo sa isang contest or sa isang meron kayong prize, o kaya sinasabi na meron kayong marireceive na big amount pero kailangan nyo munang bayaran yung mga taxes. Several years ago, meron tayong mga nare-receive na emails na sinasabing magmamana kayo ng malaking amount pero kailangan bayaran nyo muna yung mga fees na ito. No? Or mga ganong kinds of emails or text messages. Very recently, yung mga offers na magkakaroon kayo ng if you want to earn more o magkaroon ng trabaho, may mga ganun kayong marireceive. And then in the course of that conversation, hihingian kayo ng fee para ma-receive niyo yung pera or para magkaroon kayo ng trabaho. So yun ang tinatawag natin na advance fee fraud. So again, that's another type of scam. So dito naman sa romance scam, so I hope hindi naman kayo biktima, lalo na kakatapos lang ng ating February 14. So dito naman sa romance scam na to is, of course, binibefriend kayo, nakikipag-chat sa inyo, email exchanges, tapos pag nakuha na nila yung tiwala nyo, later on, they will ask for money. Okay, so sasabihin nila, ay yung nanay ko nagkaroon ng problema, nagkasakit, or kailangan kong bayaran itong utang na to, emergency lang. So kayo naman, nagpapadala, and then later on, mawawala na lang sila. So hindi nyo na sila makakontak. So that's part of romance scam or impostor scam. So yun, yung iba nga, yung sa mga Facebook accounts na take over nila, and then they will ask for money. So that's also another type of scam. So for the next slide, please. Okay, so this other types of scams naman, bogus online seller or agent. I'm sure si DTI, maraming nare-receive din na complaints on this. So yung bogus or online seller or agent naman, ito naman is yung mga tinatawag natin na merchant scam. So i-message kayo, so maybe sa social media, kakaroon kayo ng transaction, I will sell you, for example, rubber shoes for this month, for this amount, and then pwedeng pakipadala yung bayad through bank or GCash, Paymaya, or yung tinatawag nating electronic money issuers or any other e-wallet. So may mga ganun na tayo kasing digital financial products, or services. So mas madali, hindi na kayo nagkikita at magkakaliwaan ng bayad, So ang nangyayari is nagpapadala na kayo ng pera, and then at the end of the day, walang ipapadala sa inyong goods, Hindi ipapadala or hindi nyo makukuha yung rubber shoes na binili nyo. So that's another type of scam. Kaya nga lagi nating pinapaalala, and of course si DTI, na mag-transact lang doon sa mga merchants or sellers na legit, or those usually are using the platforms, na kung saan online selling platforms, na kung saan at least mas nare-regulate or namomonitor kung sino yung mga participants doon sa platform na yun. So that's another type of scam, yung online seller or what we call the merchant scam. And then we also have yung text scam by a bogus relative or friend. So again, ito din, yung kunyari magpapanggap na relative ninyo, nasa ibang bansa siya or in the province. Actually, naging uso to dati is yung humihingi ng load, So humihingi sila ng load and sasabihin nila, ako yung pinsan mo or whatever, and then papadala ka naman ng load. So again, that's another type of scam. And of course, we have the investment scam, Ito yung mga nagpa-promise na mataas yung return of your funds na ininvest nyo. So sabi nga natin, if it's too good to be true, then it's probably a scam. So isipin natin palagi na pag masyadong mataas yung return or yung interest doon sa ilalabas mong pera para mag-invest dito sa particular activity or company, and then mag-isip-isip na tayo kasi that is probably an investment scam. So these are the types of the scams that we experience whenever we do financial transactions. So in all of this kasi, like in the merchant seller or yung mga investment scams, usually kasi nakafacilitate to using our the digital products na offered by financial institutions or na mga kagaya ng banks or yung mga electronic money issuers natin. So pinapadaan nyo doon. Kaya na-i-involve dito si Bangko Sentral. So these are the types of scams that you will experience or that are still happening right now. So iba-iba, nag-evolve din yan. Depende sa, kumbaga, nakikiuso din. So may mga nakita tayo, especially dito sa online seller or agent. Di ba, at the height of the pandemic, nakita natin marami nagbebenta ng mga masks, ng mga face shields, o kaya may mga gamot no, na binibenta rin through the social media, and then later on, hindi nagkakaroon ng delivery. So, nag-evolve din siya. Kaya, yun nga, ang lagi nating reminder sa ating mga consumers is talagang maging mapanuri, mapagmatsyag, pag-isipan ng mabuti kung ano yung mga ino-offer, lalo na no, sa mga social media sites natin and through online no, or through the internet. So yun ang mga kailangan nating bantayan. So now that you know the types of scams, we hope that you will be our partners no, in preventing this scams and maging mapagmatsyag din and i-report itong mga types of scams na to para mapagtulungan natin na mahuli no, yung mga nagpa-perpetrate nitong mga transactions. For the next slide, please. So we will share with you some of the safeguards or what you need to do in case maging victims kayo no, ng mga scams na ito. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we always say that e-safety is everyone's responsibility. So bilang consumer, bilang account holder or account owner, it is your responsibility no, to know what are your rights, to always protect your accounts or your finances. So what is your responsibility as an account holder? Of course, sinasabi natin is be aware, no? Know what are the kinds of scams. So by participating in this seminar, you are being responsible in terms of handling your finances because gusto nyong malaman kung ano yung mga types of scams. So that's the first step, no? Kasi the more you know about the scams, kung alam niyo kung ano yung mga iba't ibang klase ng scams, at least mas magiging aware kayo and alam niyo kung paano mag-react in case, for example, makareceive kayo ng isang phishing scam, no? O kaya phishing email. So now, alam niyo na kung ano ang kailangan gawin. So pag may phishing email, huwag nating i-click, no? Kasi yung mga banks din, hindi talaga nagpapadala ng mga ganun. Or one way to do it is, for example, you receive a call, then sabihin nyo na lang na ako na lang ang tatawag. So, pwede nyo namang gawin yan. Tawagan niyo yung mga bangko ninyo or yung financial institution ninyo to validate if kailangan nyo ang ibigay yung mga information na hinihingi ng caller. O kaya to validate also if talaga bang nagkaroon ng unauthorized transaction. And at least masugpo pa ninyo yung mga susunod na unauthorized transactions. So those are some of the things that you can do. Pwede kayong tumawag, i-check ninyo yung mga emails, no? Usually yung mga emails na yan, may mga HTTPS, so yun yung secure. So this is that's what we say dito yan sa verification of the legitimacy of the pages and websites. So isa din yan sa mga kailangan gawin ng mga consumers. So first is, it is our responsibility to protect our financial accounts and then know the kinds of scams. And number 3 is to verify the legitimacy of the websites and yung mga pages na pinupuntahan ninyo o kaya nakikita nyo doon sa mga emails or sa mga links. Pwede nyo namang i-verify. And just very recently, so I think si NBI and si PNP naglabas din sila ng platform where you can verify kung sino yung mga legal or mga legit na mga sellers and mga websites. So may mga tools din naman sa ating na makukuha sa internet to verify the legitimacy of these websites. Next slide, please. Okay. Secure your account and personal details. So do not post your IDs, credit cards, or any items that may disclose personal details on social media. So of course, nandito na tayo sa era no, na kung saan talagang parang lahat is pinopost natin or sinishare natin sa mga social media accounts natin. So be very careful when you share all this information, especially yung mga financial information ninyo. For example, sobrang excited kayo kasi finally nabigyan kayo ng credit card. Huwag niyong ipopost yung credit card niyo kasi may mga sensitive financial information doon. Especially yung nasa likod, yung three numbers doon, what we call the CVV. These are very sensitive information. Pag nakuha ng mga scammers, then pwede nilang ma-access yung account niyo. So be very circumspect and also be very careful, no, not to disclose all of this information. Kaya nga sa BSP sometimes when we receive complaints tapos naka-attach yung picture ng kanilang credit card, yung front and back, nagre-remind kami na dapat hindi ganon kailangan wag i-disclose yung mga financial information. So isa yun sa mga responsibilities natin bilang consumer is to secure your account and personal details. No? Kasi may mga nangyayari dyan, a few years back, nagkaroon din ng isang issue, yung isang tao na nag-post ng ID niya, tapos nakuha yung mga details and then ginamit yung information niya to get a loan from a bank. So dahil lang doon no, sa pag-disclose na yun is na-access and nagamit yung kanyang personal information. So be very careful kung ano yung mga ipinopost ninyo sa social media accounts ninyo or even yung dinidisclose ninyo sa mga kamag-anak ninyo, no? Yung mga pins ninyo, dapat hindi ninyo yan, yung ATM pins, hindi nyo binibigay sa ibang tao or kahit sa kamag-anak ninyo. Kasi pag may nangyari dyan, that will be for your account. No? It's your responsibility kasi if you will check yung mga agreements nyo with your banks, isa yan sa mga dapat hindi ninyo ginagawa. No? Yung pag-disclose ng mga personal sensitive financial information such as PINs or OTPs na later on pag nagkaroon na kayo ng mga transactions. And then another is you should strengthen your password and security. So make sure na yung mga passwords nyo na ginagamit is hindi yung madaling mahulaan like yung 1, 2, 3, 4 o kaya password. O kaya tayo, madalas natin ginagamit yung mga birthdays natin, no? Dapat hindi ganun kadali kasi pwede yan makita ng mga scammers through other means. So, yung birthdays natin, at as much as possible, lagyan natin ng other variation or other symbols para at least ma-mix up siya kung yun ang gusto nyong gamitin. And then, you also need to change your password regularly, no? Kasi, yun nga, pag medyo matagal na, baka madali na siyang makuha. And lalo na pag gumagamit din tayo ng mga public Wi-Fi, so baka ma-intercept no, yung mga passwords nyo or mga financial information. So mag-ingat din tayo doon. So that's why you need to strengthen your password and security. And then we also need to follow financial security guidelines when making transactions. Pag nagkaroon ng pagkakamali, inform immediately the financial institution na apparently nakaka-receive. For example, naka-receive kayo ng phishing email, i-report nyo din yan kasi it's an information na very useful sa mga financial institutions. No? Kasi pag na-report nyo siya, the financial institutions have their own mechanisms na kung saan pwede nilang ipa-take down or i-trace nila. So at least nakakatulong din kayo sa pagsugpo nitong mga types of scams na to. So follow yung mga security guidelines. You can see that in the terms and conditions and also require din namin ang mga financial institutions na maglagay sa kanilang mga websites kung ano ba yung mga dapat sundin or mga steps no, na gagawin ng kanilang mga clients in case na maging victim sila ng mga scam. So saan ba magre-report, anong mga forms ang kailangan i-fill up, anong mga documents ang kailangan i-submit, gaano kabilis dapat i-report. So those steps kailangan sundan natin, no? Especially when we become victims of these scams. Kasi ito yung formal process na ng pag-dispute ninyo. Okay, and also for some financial institutions, they have mga what we call yung multi-factor authentications na kung saan hindi lang password pero papadalhan pa kayo ng, for example, one-time PIN o kaya you need to verify through email. So hindi lang isang beses kayo mag-verify, no? Or may kailangan pa kayong i-input doon para bago ninyo ma-access yung inyong account. So may mga ganong guidelines din yung ibang bangko para as part of their security measures also. And in some cases naman, you can block or you can lock your credit cards. May mga ganong features din. So tingnan natin yung mga security features, no, ng mga online services or products that you use, especially if gumagamit kayo ng mga mobile apps, no, kaya sa online banking, meron silang kung minsan gagamitin ng face recognition o kaya yung sa fingerprint. So these are security measures that you can avail of, no, pag ino-offer ng inyong financial institution. So we recommend that you use this multi-factor authentication para mas protected yung inyong mga accounts. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So we now go to the BSP, Consumer Assistance Mechanism. No? So yung mga previous slides, these are information that you will find useful, no? Kung ano ba yung mga types of scams, ano yung mga dapat ninyong gawin, no? Kung kayo ay magiging biktima ng mga scams, and kung ano yung mga dapat nyong gawin para hindi kayo maging biktima ng mga scams na to. And now, I will be sharing with you the BSP Consumer Assistance Mechanism. So, in the event, no, that you become victims of these scams and then hindi kayo nagkaroon ng kasunduan ng financial institution, you may now escalate to the BSP Consumer Assistance using the Consumer Assistance Mechanism. Because the rule is also just like what DTI is doing or informing the public, na dapat pag nagkaroon kayo ng problema doon sa produkto, ang una niyong lalapitan or pupuntahan is yung institution na nag-offer ng product. So that's the same rule also when for financial products and services. Pag nagkaroon ng problema sa deposit account ninyo, ang kailangan yung unang puntahan or mag-report muna kayo doon sa bangko ninyo. Okay, so that's the rule when we talk about the redress mechanism. So as you can see here, the BSP CAM, this is a complaints handling process that is facilitative in nature. Meaning, tinutulungan namin kayo na mapaabot doon sa financial institution ninyo kung ano yung naging problema ninyo. Okay? So this is merely facilitative. We do not do investigation or hindi kami nagkakaroon ng adjudication pag nagkakaroon ng problema or complaint against a financial institution. And this is a second-level recourse for clients of PSFIs. Meaning, pang-escalate na lang to. Kasi nga, sabi natin, ang rule is dapat ang unang pupuntahan pag nagkaroon ng concern or problema is the financial institution. So that's the first recourse. That's the first level or the first step. Now, if hindi nagkasundo doon sa financial institution, you may now go to the Bangko Sentral for the consumer assistance mechanism. Now, what will this do? Kasi sasabihin nyo, nanggaling na nga kami sa financial institution and then pupunta kami sa Bangko Sentral, tapos ibabalik din naman sa financial institution. So the difference here is, pagdating nyo sa amin, sa senior level na ng management, no? The senior management na ang ng financial institution ang magiging kausap ninyo. Kasi doon sa first level, usually ang kausap niyo is yung sa branch or yung mga customer service agents nila, and hindi pa siya na-escalate sa higher management. So when you go to the BSP, yun ang service or assistance na may offer namin sa inyo. Ang magiging kausap niyo dito or yung concern niyo is makakarating na siya sa senior management. And so what will happen is we ask the senior management to look into your concern and then respond directly to you kung ano yung action nila or ano yung mga next steps or pwede nyo pang gawin doon sa inyong concern. No? So that's the process under the consumer assistance mechanism. So next slide, please. So what are the things that you need to do, no? Whenever you have a complaint against a financial institution? As I've mentioned earlier, call, email, or write your bank or financial institution immediately, no? Lalo na pag ang concern nyo is yung mga fraud or yung mga unauthorized transactions o kaya nawala yung credit card nyo. You need to report that immediately para magawa nila ng action. So you can do it by calling, email, or writing. And then you should, if kailangan yung isulat yung inyong dispute, you need to do it in a clear way, no? And it must be in writing. Kasi yung ibang mga financial institutions, nagpapa-fill up sila ng dispute form, which now becomes the basis of initiating an investigation on your complaint. And then document your actions and the institution's responses. So, as much as possible, i-save ninyo yung mga messages sa inyo, yung mga emails ninyo, yung mga email exchanges ninyo with your financial institutions. I-document nyo yun, i-save ninyo, so that when you go to the BSP, you have this transactions or yung mga documents, no, in your possession showing na nakipag-usap na kayo sa financial institution. So these are also very important documents, no, para nakikita din kung ano na ba yung steps or yung mga nangyaring pag-uusap between you and the financial institution. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have different ways, no, of escalating concerns to the BSP. So ang latest namin na ni-launch in 2020 was our chatbot. So yung tinatawag natin si BOB or the BSP online body. So makikita niyo siya sa BSP website. If in case nga na nagkaroon kayo ng complaint and hindi pa natapos doon sa level ng financial institution, you can now escalate using our chatbot. So as I've mentioned, makikita niyo siya sa website namin. Powered siya ng artificial intelligence. Pwede siyang makaintindi or nakakaintindi siya ng Tagalog and also Taglish. So you just need to fill up. May conversation doon, i-fill up nyo lang yung mga tanong niya until the time na mabigyan kayo ng reference number. So that's one way of escalating your concern to BSP. So we do encourage you to use Bob kasi mas real-time siya, mas madali yung pag-process ng concern ninyo or ng complaints ninyo. And then what will happen is, once na tapos na ninyo yung Bob conversation, yung complaint ninyo, yung information about your complaint will be referred or will be relayed immediately doon sa financial institution, doon sa senior management of the financial institution na kung saan meron kayong problema. So, very convenient to use Bob kasi mas mabilis, no, ang turnaround time natin dito. But you may also escalate your concerns to the BSP through our traditional means. Next slide, please. Okay. So as you can see here on the slide, we have different channels also for reaching Bob. So one is through our website. So when you click the bsp.gov.ph or when you visit our website, makikita niyo yung Bob icon na nakikita niyo dyan. Para siyang robot. So makikita niyo siya sa lower right portion of our website. So i-click niya lang siya and then magkakaroon na yan ng conversation with Bob. And then you can also text Bob using the SMS. Okay, so and makikita niyo sa screen niyo yung number that you can use para magkaroon ng conversation with Bob. And another platform or portal kung saan pwede niyong ma-reach si Bob is through our Bangko Sentral Facebook page. Okay, so doon sa messenger niya, pwede na kayong makipag-chat with Bob and ikwento niyo doon yung inyong reklamo against the financial institution. But as I've mentioned, we still have the traditional ways of filing complaints with PSP. So you can call us. You can see on the screen our phone numbers. And then you may also send us your complaints via email. So when you send your complaint via email, makaka-receive kayo ng auto-reply. And then you will be informed that you need to fill out the form. This is the CIR form, no? So you have to fill that up and then send it back to Consumer Affairs at psp.gov.ph. Or doon naman sa walang access sa internet, walang email, or hindi makatawag, pwede pa rin naman kayo magpadala through postal mail. And you can send your letter to the Consumer Protection and Market Conduct Office. So you will see the address there on your screen. So pwede pa naman yan ipadala sa amin. Nare-receive pa rin naman namin siya. So before the pandemic, we also have the face-to-face or pwede kayong makavisit sa Bangko Sentral, mag-walk-in. But right now, we are still limiting our visitors. So that's why we also launched this chatbot para mas madali ninyo kaming makontak. So these are the BSP Cam channels. This is how you can get in touch with us. So that's part of our efforts of bringing the BSP closer to the Filipino people and also providing the consumers another way or another portal of reaching the BSP para mas marinig namin kung ano yung mga reklamo ninyo. So these are the consumer protection initiatives being done by the BSP. In addition to this, of course, we have our regular digital literacy programs and also our FinEd campaigns. And as you can see in our Facebook page, so mag-visit lang kayo doon. Maraming mga information on scams and other products and services being offered. So, and also on top of this financial education programs, we have this regulatory framework or issuances to ensure that our financial institutions have in place risk management systems, especially now na pinupush nga natin yung mga digital transactions. So ang expectation din sa mga financial institutions is they have in place mga IT or information security risk management systems para mas maprotektahan yung funds ng mga tao and of course ma-prevent din magkaroon ng mga security features and measures para ma-prevent yung cyber security breaches. So those are all in place and those are the expectations from our financial institutions. So first is they comply with our consumer protection framework and then have in place efficient and timely redress mechanisms. And also on top of that, they should do financial education and literacy programs to complement what the BSP is also doing in terms of financial education and awareness campaigns. Plus the regulatory environment that we have established para yung mga banks magko-comply sa mga rules and regulations of BSP, particularly in this case on IT and information security risk management. So those are some of the initiatives of the BSP when it comes to providing an efficient and safe digital financial services to the public. Kasi nga, as I've mentioned earlier, yun ang ini-envision natin is mas maraming maging financially included, meaning mas maraming Pilipino ang mag-access sa mga financial services and products natin. But at the same time, kailangan itong mga services and products na ito ay safe and efficient para sa lahat ng mga Pilipino. And for the next slide, I will just be sharing with you the very recent bill na pinupush din ng Bangko Sentral and also with the other regulators such as the Insurance Commission, the CDA, and also the SEC. Because as you will note also, we don't really have a standalone Financial Consumer Protection Act. What we have is the General Consumer Protection Act, which is primarily being implemented by DTI. But we have sought the assistance, and also we have shepherded the passage of this bill. No? So this was already passed by Congress, and very recently lang, just this February, by the Senate. So na-approve na rin siya ng Senate. So we are just waiting and hoping that this will soon be signed by the President. No? Kasi this will really be very important to the financial consumers and also to the financial regulators because the FCP Act already covers digital financial products and services. As you can see under the scope, it applies to all financial products and services, which includes deposit, insurance, remittance, and digital financial products and services. It also covers investment advisors. And this also mirrors or this also complies now with the international standards and practices where we provide the consumer protection standards, which I have mentioned earlier. So we also have transparency and disclosure, fair treatment, privacy and protection, as well as effective redress mechanisms. So these are the consumer protection standards also embodied in the FCPA Act. And the FCP Act also provides for the duties of financial service providers. So the expectation is there should be board oversight, there should be appropriate product design and delivery. Yung mga products na ino-offer should be affordable based on their affordability assessments. And then this would also instill discipline among the market players because the financial institutions, including the directors, officers, employees, or even their agents, will be responsible for acts or omissions provided under the FCPA. And next slide, please. So the other provisions of the FCPA are the provisions on the powers of the financial regulator. So we will be given rulemaking, market surveillance and examination, market monitoring, adjudication, and enforcement. So while the financial regulators have these powers, but then this will be very specific for compliance with consumer protection standards. So this, especially the adjudication power for Bangko Sentral, this will be very important to us because as I've mentioned earlier, we only facilitate, pinag-uusap lang namin kayo, at yung inyong mga bangko or financial institution pag nagkakaroon ng problema. But with the adjudication power and also the enforcement power, we can hear and decide on cases and even award yung mga restitution or reimbursements. Pwedeng mas-ulit sa inyo kung if during the adjudication process is makita na may negligence or may pagkukulang doon sa part ng financial institution such that it would merit the restitution or marireimburse or ibabalik sa inyo yung perang nawala. So this is a very important provision. And of course, the enforcement provision na kung saan pwede kaming mag-enforce and also mag-impose ng mga sanctions for violation of the Consumer Protection Act, which is really very specific for financial products and services. And also, these powers given to financial regulators would also help or at least instill discipline also among the market players. No? Kasi nga, meron ng specific provision sa batas na kailangan sundin at in terms of consumer protection. So very specific yan. And of course, we now have the administrative and criminal sanctions that may be imposed on the financial service providers, their directors, officers, or agents, or employees if in case they violate the provisions of the FCPA. Okay. So I think this ends my my lecture, and as we always say, consumer protection is a shared responsibility. So we do ask our consumers to be our partners, no, in protecting our rights, and let's be responsible. Know what are the types of scams. Know what are the things that we need to do in case we become victims of these scams. And of course, continuous education also on our part, no, to know kung ano ba yung mga trends, ano ba yung mga bagong produkto, mga services, ano yung mga bagong investments. So, kailangan alamin din natin yan. And on the part of the regulators, including the TPI, of course, is we will provide you the regulatory environment which could protect the financial consumers. And also, we will have our own redress mechanisms para malapitan ninyo kami. And of course, we also have our financial education and campaigns and awareness programs para din makatulong and ma-inform ang public kung ano yung mga dapat ingatan, iwasan para sa mga financial transactions natin. And all of these are, of course, geared towards having you, the public, trust our financial services and also our financial system. Kasi yun din naman ang gusto ng BSP na mas maraming gumamit ng mga digital financial transactions. But at the same time, we also want you to have trust and confidence in the system para mas lalo nyo silang i-gagamitin sa inyong mga transactions. And with that, I end my lecture, and I hope you've learned a lot from what I've shared. Thank you also to DPI for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you very much po, Attorney Charina, for your very informative presentation. I have learned po na since we are already living in the new normal, everyone po talaga is going digital, lalo na po sa payment schemes. So, important po talaga na malaman ng ating mga consumers ang protective measures such as yung responsibility for e-safety, knowing all kinds of scams, and verifying the legitimacy of pages and websites para po maiwasan ng fraud at scams when it comes to electronic transactions. So at this moment po, we are opening the session for our Q&A portion. But before we proceed, please be reminded to stay muted unless you are addressing the speakers and moderators directly. Please also be informed po that you can download a copy of the presentation material after you have accomplished the client satisfaction feedback form that will be posted in the chat box section. So to make this portion interactive, we encourage everyone to click the raise hand button so we can call you to ask directly to our speaker. Kindly limit your questions to 1 to 2 only, but you can also send in your questions through the chat box. So for our first question po, Attorney Sharina, may tips po ba kayo on how we can identify and avoid spoofing and phishing scams? Sometimes site reviews are not available and provision of personal data is sometimes required for financial transactions.
Thank you for that question. Yes, for the tips, as I've mentioned earlier, usually yung mga legit na websites. They have the HTTPS doon sa address nila. And then, like for other websites then, you need to be very careful kasi sometimes makikita nyo yung sa spelling or yung domain name nila is talagang merong pinapalitan lang, for example, isang letter para mas magmukha siyang legit or legal, no? Or valid yung website na yon or the domain name. So those are some of the tips, no, that you need to be aware of. And also, as I've mentioned, if ever you receive nga this or maka-encounter kayo ng mga ganitong types of website, get in touch with your financial institution kasi i-guide nila kayo or ibibigay nila sa inyo yung tamang website address or domain name or email address. No? Kasi for me, very important na mas kayo yung tatawag sa financial institution rather na sila yung tatawag. Although may mga instances din talaga na tumatawag sila, but para din mas maprotektahan kayo and para mas, mas confident kayo na yung kausap ninyo is talagang yung taga-bangko or taga-financial institution, it would be better na kayo na lang yung tumawag sa mga institutions na para mas matanong nyo din na ito bang website na to is sa inyo ba talaga? Ito bang email na to is pinadala ba ninyo sa akin? So those are the verifications or validations that you can do whenever you receive this type of emails or website or pag na-encounter niyo yung mga ganun apparently spoof emails or websites.
Thank you po, Attorney Sharina. For our second question po, how can we ensure that our sensitive and personal data and information are protected? Sometimes we just receive messages from various entities. So parang related po siya dun sa first.
Yes, no? So yun nga, lalo na ngayon, no, na talagang yung financial or not just your financial information but also your personal information na nagagamit din, no, para ma-access yung mga accounts. I think maraming pinanggagalingan yan na alam naman natin, lalo na nung mga pag nagbibigay kayo ng mga information ninyo, kunyari nag-fill up kayo ng form online. So, pwedeng makuha kasi yan eh. So, maraming nagmamine or maraming bumibili ng information na yan. So, kaya on our part, talagang maging very vigilant na lang tayo. And on the part naman of the financial institutions, as I've mentioned, the BSP has issued several regulations to ensure that all these financial institutions have a secure information system. Meron silang mga sistema na kung saan pwedeng matrack or at least magkaroon ng mga alarms, no, na kung saan na pag ito nangyayari at maka-flag sila na mukhang merong unauthorized transaction o tumataas yung mga phishing emails using the financial institution's name. So lahat yon, part yun ng risk management system ng ating mga financial institutions. So that's on the part of the industry, no. And on our part naman nga, as I mentioned and also laging paulit-ulit din namin na-mention ng ating mga regulators including the DTI, talagang mas maging mapanuri tayo, mapagmatsyag, and whenever we fill out forms, we make sure na secure din yun and wag din natin, kung hindi naman kailangan ibigay yung lahat ng ng information, wag na lang natin ibigay. And also, kung hinihingian tayo ng financial information, medyo magdalawang isip tayo na ibigay yon kasi kung ang form lang naman is, for example, contact tracing or parang other forms of application. Sa tingin natin, hindi naman necessary yung mga financial information, then maging mas maingat tayo, magduda na tayo, bakit kaya hinihingi itong information na to? Diba? So, if it's not for the purpose of that form. Tapos may mga additional information din, magduda tayo, huwag nating ibigay. So that's also to protect ourselves in our accounts.
Noted po on that, attorney, and thank you po. Next question po, may tips po ba kayo on how we can identify and avoid spoofing and phishing scams? Sometimes site reviews are not available and provision of personal data is sometimes required for financial transactions.
I think that was the first question about the spoofing. Yeah. So yeah, very important din talaga kasi talaga for us to be educated and be aware ano yung mga sites na pwede nating mapagkuhanan ng information kung paano maiwasan yung mga scams. Yes.
Thank you po, attorney. Next question po, the pandemic po forced most consumers to do online banking. How does BSP monitor service fees of banks? How does BSP protect consumers from overcharging?
Yes, so when it comes to fees and charges, if you will note during the first few months and in 2020 and up to early 2021, may mga ang parang expectation natin sa mga financial institutions is to be also be aware and be considerate also when they impose mga fees and charges, such that during 2020 meron yung mga fees talaga natin sa mga bank transfers, mga fund transfers and other financial services, sinuspend naman yun ng ating mga financial institutions. No? So they were also considerate and nakita rin natin talagang naghihirap and mahirap din talagang gumawa ng mga transactions during those times, especially nung kaka-lockdown pa lang natin. So talagang nag-impose din, nag-waive din sila ng mga fees and charges nila. No? And how do we monitor? Right now kasi, or it has always been the policy of the BSP na when it comes to fees and charges, yung mga interests, these are market-driven. So it will depend on the situation or yung mga fees din ng mga other financial institutions. So parang competition yan. So if mas mababa yung fees and charges mo, for sure, mas maraming pupunta dun sa financial institution na yun. So we don't really regulate, but we also take into account yung mga complaints ninyo, yung mga information na nagagather namin sa mga consumers. And then regularly naman, we review yung mga fees and charges na nakukuha namin from the financial institutions. And also what we do is parang as part of disclosure and transparency, we ask the financial institutions to disclose or even sa mga ATMs natin to post kung ano yung mga fees nila, para mas nagiging aware yung mga consumers kung ano yung mga iba't ibang klaseng fees and nako-compare nila yon. So pag mas alam mo kung ano yung mga range or mga rates ng mga fees and charges na to, mas makakapili ka. So hindi mo nagagamitin yung isang bangko if masyadong mataas yung fees niya. O kaya hindi mo gagamitin yung ATM nitong particular bank na to kasi masyadong mataas yung mga fees niya. So ganun lang yung ating policy when it comes to fees and charges. No, we don't regulate, but we do also get inputs and feedback from the consumers and also from the market kung ano yung nangyayari, such that if we need to intervene or at least discuss with the financial institutions, we have this basis na masyadong tumataas na. But generally, it's a market-driven environment when it comes to interest, fees, and charges.
Thank you po, attorney. For the next question po, how does BSP promote competition in financial services. May mechanism po ba ang BSP where it is easier for consumer to search, compare, and switch between products and providers easily at a reasonable cost?
So I think that's related also to the earlier question. No? As I've mentioned, part or isa sa mga requirements natin sa mga financial institution is, especially in compliance with the disclosure and transparency consumer protection standard, is talagang i-disclose nila ano ba yung mga iba't ibang fees and charges na binibigay nila or pinapataw sa mga products and services nila. And by doing this, mas nagiging aware no, yung mga financial consumers and mako-compare nila kung anong mga presyo no, ng mga produkto na yan. And also, if you can check and go to our website, we've posted also yung mga interests and fees ng mga banks, no, especially for credit cards. Pinost namin yan sa BSP website para mas makita ninyo kung anong credit card ba yung mataas mag-impose ng interest, ano yung mga charges, fees na ini-impose nila sa mga transactions whenever you use your credit card. So meron din tayong just check no, the BSP website. And also, as I've mentioned, expectation yan sa lahat ng financial institution na ipakita yung kanilang mga fees and charges. Para kayo naman as consumer, you can also check and compare, no? Para mas malaman ninyo kung magkano na ba ang kalakalan natin sa market, no, when it comes to the fees for financial transactions and products.
Thank you po, Attorney. Thank you po. Before we head on to our next question sa ating chat box, para po sa ating mga participants na may katanungan po, we encourage you to click the raise hand button so we can call you to ask directly to our speaker. So for our next question po sa chat box, Attorney, may regulations po ba ang BSP regarding fake bills dispensed by ATMs? Ano po ang sanctions sa financial institutions if proven na they dispensed fake bills? Since it can be hard to identify fake bills due to technology and advancement, how can consumers be protected from this?
So in terms of fake bills dispensed from ATMs, no, the thrust talaga of BSP is to ensure that all financial institutions should comply with our policies on the notes and bills that we put out there, no, kasi nga nanggagaling yun sa BSP, and the expectation is yung mga financial institutions should at all times see to it that yung mga notes and bills or even coins na ginagamit nila in their transactions are also yung mga legitimate talaga, hindi fake. So dapat walang nagsisirculate na ganon in the financial, in the banking industry, no, especially sa mga ATM. So sinesecure din and also ini-ensure din naman ng mga financial institutions natin na kung ano yung nilalabas doon ay talaga yung mga legitimate bills yun. Now, in terms of regulations and policy, so we have naman in place, the BSP has in place yung ating rules on the use of banknotes, and also we have yung clean note policy natin na kung saan dapat maayos and hindi nagpapacirculate ng mga luma, and of course yung mga fake bills kasi nga bawal yan. So regularly we also check with our financial institutions, and we have this agreements naman with them na talagang dapat yung nalalabas na mga notes natin ay hindi fake, no? So if in case may mga reports kaming nare-receive, so we do have our internal policies and regulations on how we deal with those banks na kung saan makareceive kami ng reports. Kaya important din nga yung sinasabi namin na we also hear from you, and you as consumers, you also report to us, no, kung may mga instances na ganun. But we give you the assurance na yung banking industry natin ay they comply talaga with our requirements in terms of the distribution and circulation of our notes.
Thank you po, Attorney Sharina. Our next question po, valid or legal practice po ba ng mga establishments na hindi na nagre-require ng signature sa mga credit card purchases kapag less than 2,000 ang transaction?
So in terms of yung requirement for signatures for specific range of transactions, so kanya-kanyang policy yan ng mga credit card issuers natin together with their partner merchants, no? Meron silang mga service level agreements na kung saan even though you don't need the signature anymore, meron silang mga risk management system in place na kung saan mapoprotect pa rin or mahahabol in case may mga unauthorized transactions, because we do recognize, no, as we've mentioned and as we've noted, no, na talagang nagsishift na tayo to digital transactions. So kung minsan talaga hindi na needed yung signature, and sometimes tinatap na lang, di ba? And that's a form of parang validation na nag-okay kayo sa transaction. So in some cases talaga nagsiset sila ng limit na, for example, up to 2,000 transactions, no need na for signature. So may mga banks na ganyan or may mga credit card issuers na ganun yung kanilang policy. No? But as much as possible, ang expectation ng BSP is maayos, no, yung system nila para sa mga ganong klaseng transactions such that maiiwasan pa rin yung mga unauthorized transactions. So kasama yan sa mga service level agreements between the financial institution and the merchants, and also yung risk management system of all these financial institutions. No? Pag may mga ganong parang masasabi nating naging mas relax sila, no? Na such that they don't require anymore the signature.
Thank you po, Attorney Sharina. For our next question po, may remedy or redress mechanisms po ba na available to consumers kapag may mga unauthorized transactions sila sa credit cards and online bank accounts nila?
Yes. So the remedy is always there. No? Kaya nga na-mention natin kanina, excuse me, that financial institution should have in place their redress mechanisms or mga consumer assistance units nila. Kailangan may mga hotlines sila, especially pag mga unauthorized transactions, no? May mga dedicated hotlines yan para immediately makaka-report kayo doon sa financial institution ninyo pag nangyari yung unauthorized transaction on your credit card. So what you do is immediately report, especially if it's a lost or stolen card, report nyo agad sa financial institution ninyo para malaman nila na nawala or nagkaroon ng unauthorized transaction, then mabablock nila yung card mo. So those are the things that you need to do. And for each credit card issuer, meron naman silang mga consumer assistance units. So requirement natin yan. Requirement ng BSP yan sa mga financial institutions. Para nga, pag nagkaroon ng problema is punta kayo sa financial institution, and then if hindi kayo nagkakasundo doon, you can go also to the BSP. And if in case of mga unauthorized transactions or na-scam kayo or na-phishing kunyari, na take over yung account ninyo, one thing that you need to do also as a consumer or account holder is report it to the PNP or NBI or the CICC or yung Cyber Crime Investigation Coordination Council. So that's a relatively new unit. So sila yung mga nag-i-investigate sa mga cybercrime related incidents, no? So pag naging victim kayo nun, these are the institutions na pwede nyong puntahan. Number one is go to your financial institution. if hindi magkasundo doon, go to BSP. And simultaneously, then you can also go to PNP or NBI para ma-report nyo din and ma-investigate yung cyber-related incident ninyo.
That has been noted po, Attorney. For our next question po, under BSP rin po ba ang pag-manage or regulate ng complaints sa e-wallet platforms such as PayPal, DragonPay, GCash, and PayMaya?
Yes, if you will see doon sa mga first few slides ko, yung PayPal, yung PayMaya, and also DragonPay, GCash, these are e-wallets and also being offered by financial institutions supervised by the BSP. So kasama sila, yung mga e-wallets na yan, kasama sila sa mga pwede ninyong i-report sa BSP. And also, you also have to be very careful when you transact with these institutions kasi mas based sila sa mas digital talaga sila and heavy sila on internet transactions. So we have this list of financial institutions. So punta lang kayo sa BSP website. Makikita nyo kung ano yung mga electronic money issuers, yung mga operators of payment services. So, mga bagong types of institutions kasi yan, yung mga nag-o-offer ng mga e-wallets. So, makikita nyo yan lahat sa website namin. So, I advise you that before you transact with this new types of institutions, you check also our website para makikita ninyo kung ano yung license or yung mga kumbaga, accredited ng BSP para at least alam niyo na pag may mangyari yun, pwede kayong tumakbo din sa BSP. And of course, these regulated or licensed institutions, you have the assurance na nag-undergo sila ng requirements namin and nag-comply din sila. So, meron tayong assurance na mas safe yung mga transactions niyo with them. So, check also our website for these institutions. And not only BSP, kasi meron din sa mga other regulators. So, yun din ang tip ko sa inyo is always check yung list ng mga financial regulators natin for these new types of institutions.
Yes po, thank you po on that. For our next question po, na-mention po kanina na first level is to address first the complaint with the institution. What's the reasonable timeline for institutions to provide redress or resolution to consumers? Minsan po kasi umaabot ng more than a month, wala pa ring action from the institution.
Okay, so in terms of turnaround time for handling complaints, what we have under our consumer protection framework is that we adhere to the proportionality principle na kung saan yung mga financial institution may kanya-kanya silang policy on the turnaround time or complaints handling. Okay, so for example kasi kung minsan masyadong maliit naman yung institution such that pag nag-file ka ng complaint, in one day kaya na nilang tapusin. So may mga ganun tayong considerations na ginawa doon sa ating consumer protection policy. That's why we don't impose na dapat tapusin mo in 2 days, 3 days. So kanya-kanya yung mga financial institutions natin in terms of their complaints handling or yung turnaround time nila. But yun nga, ang expectation under the CP framework is that kailangan timely and dapat efficient such that yung mga complaints ninyo is hindi naman aabot ng ganun katagal unless may mga investigations na kailangan pang gawin. Kaya kung minsan umaabot din yan ng months or the financial institution would have to coordinate with for example, with another financial institution para ma-check yung mga transactions. But as much as possible, dapat timely, mabilisan lang. Kaya nga, di ba, sinasabi natin dapat 24/7 merong hotline yung mga bangko na yan or financial institution para ma-actionan din nila agad, especially if digital financial transactions ang involved. Okay, so, and also nga, if ever ganun na yung nangyayari, nag-report na kayo, and then hindi pa kayo binabalikan, for example, after 1 month, there's something wrong with that, with the redress mechanism of the financial institution. Kasi ang expectation din is, pag nag-report kayo, dapat kahit pa paano sagutin nila kayo. And doon sa sagot na yon, kahit naman hindi immediately mariresolve, at least alam ninyo kung ano yung next steps na gagawin. I-inform kayo, okay, you need to submit this dispute form, and upon submission of the dispute form, you give us, for example, 5 days. So may mga ganun dapat na information na binibigay sa inyo. Pero pag hindi kayo sinasagot first time, tapos wala na kayong narinig, you can report that to us. Kasi it seems that there's a problem with the redress mechanism of that institution.
So in other words po, attorney, wala tayong specific timeline kasi depende sa nature po ng complaint. But then kung complicated po na complaint, dapat may feedback pa rin po para dun sa complainant, at least para alam niya po kung ano na yung status. Tama po ba, attorney?
Yes. So that's part of the redress mechanism, na yung complaints handling nila, na may feedback din every time na nagpa-follow up kayo. No? Kahit man lang sa follow up, dapat sinasagot kayo. It doesn't necessarily mean na na-resolve na in 3 days, but then, yun nga, continuous feedback. That's the expectation from the financial institutions.
Thank you po, attorney. He does not handle mediation and adjudication. If hindi ma-resolve ang complaint after BSP's facilitation, what can the complainant do?
Okay, so if hindi na-resolve sa BSP, kasi on the part of BSP, ang highest, o kumbaga parang pinaka-final na pwede namin ma-offer is mediation, na kung saan talagang paghaharapin na yung complainant and also the financial institution. So if mag-fail pa rin yun, then the next recourse would be to go to the courts na you have to file sa courts. And also, as mentioned din, may mga cases talaga na hindi ma-fall sa BSP or hindi pwedeng ma-mediate kasi nga, for example, yung mga may mga account takeovers kasi yan talaga kailangan pang investigahan din ng PNP or NBI. So sila kasi yung humahabol talaga doon sa scammers kasi cyber-related incidents na yun. That's why you also need to escalate that to the law enforcement agencies.
Okay po, attorney. Thank you po. For our next question, can you elaborate also what is an example of a non-bank with quasi-banking functions?
Okay, so these are financial institutions na humihingi ng participation or investments from the public. So hindi sila nagbabangko, hindi sila nagte-take ng deposits or yung usual ng mga transactions being done by banks. But these are NBFIs, non-bank sila, tapos kumukuha sila ng investment sa public for different purposes, na usually to also finance other corporations. So may mga ganun na activities yung ating mga NBFIs with quasi-banking functions. So yun ang examples, yun ang mga activities na ginagawa ng mga NBFIs. Hindi talaga sila kumukuha ng deposits.
Noted po, attorney. Thank you po. Time check po, it's already 11:45 a.m. We can still accommodate a few more questions, and we apologize po if may mga questions na hindi namin mabasa since we have a limited time. So for our next question po, attorney, from Marie Ann Darato. Ma'am, ano po ang liability ng card holder na na-scam?
Okay, so for ang question is liability of the card holder, no?
Yes po.
Okay. that would depend also on the findings or during the investigation. No? Kasi if, for example, makita during the investigation na naging negligent yung cardholder, siya yung nag-disclose ng mga information o kaya napabayaan niya yung card niya kung saan niya lang nalagay and then nawala, hindi niya na-report. So in those instances, ang liability of the cardholder is that siya yung sasagot doon sa mga charges na nakarga doon sa card niya kasi there was negligence on the part of the account holder. Kaya nga, lagi nating pinapayo or lagi nating nire-remind yung ating mga consumers na pag meron kang credit card or ATM card or debit card, talagang ingatan mo yan kasi pag may mga transactions na nangyari doon, due to the negligence on the part of the account holder, babayaran na talaga yung na-charge doon. So that's the usual scenario whenever may mga na-scam kasi may disclosure. But yun nga, in some instances naman talagang yung mga financial institutions naman natin, they do consider the circumstances, tinitingnan nila kung ano ang nangyari. And in some cases, they offer mga waiver of fees, mga interest, or in some cases, they even waive 50% kung ano yung na-charge sa inyo. So, kaya nga maganda na talagang report immediately to your financial institution para makita din kung ano ba yung nangyari. Kung may negligence on your part or talagang wala naman and you did everything para ma-protect mo yung card mo. And that's the time na magkakaroon din ng negotiation or findings and investigation yung financial institution ninyo and tingnan kung ano yung pwedeng maging liability ninyo.
Noted po on that, attorney. For our next question po from Elizabeth Yasumatsu, pwede po bang isagot ng bank na hindi nila matrace yung withdrawn amount sa account ko?
Hindi matrace? Usually dapat nakikita ng mga financial institutions lahat ng transactions na nangyayari sa account ninyo. It's just that we need to also be mindful and be aware that may mga confidentiality provisions ang ating bangko or may, lalo na if sa bank yan and then deposit account ang involved. If napunta sa another beneficiary or another account, nahihirapan yung banks to disclose kung saan napunta. No, it's not that hindi nila natitrace, but rather it's more of hindi nila ma-disclose sa inyo kung saan napunta yung na-withdraw sa account mo kasi we have some laws in place, no, like the Bank Secrecy Act. Kaya na kung saan pinagbabawal yung mga banks, no, to disclose any information about a deposit account. So isa yun sa mga limitations na nai-impose sa mga banks ngayon because of that. But generally, dapat lahat ng transactions nakikita yun ng bank.
Kahit po, attorney, kunyari ako po yung nagre-request ng information, ako yung owner po ng account, hindi pa rin pwede.
If it's your account, of course, pwede niyang sabihin sa inyo. Kasi account mo yun eh. So, kumbaga ang hinihingi mo is yung transaction mo. So, wala naman disclosure to another person but to the account owner. So yun, pwede yung i-disclose ng bangko sa inyo.
Noted po, attorney. Thank you po. For our next question po, what are the usual consumer-related issues or problems encountered and how are they addressed by BSP? What is BSP's consumer complaints resolution rate as of 2021?
So for 2021, we're still checking our database, but for the resolution rate, in terms of the consumer complaints, nasa around more than half naman ang mga na-receive ng BSP is nare-resolve naman siya. So So that's between the financial institution and the complainant. So sila at least na-resolve nila on their own yung complaints, no? Kasi we don't have na yung like in the case of DTI, meron kayong adjudication na kung saan talagang pwede nyo ma-resolve yung concerns upon through hearing on the case, no? But in the case of BSP, since facilitation lang siya, so yung mga nare-receive namin is talagang through the discussion or pag-uusap ng mga parties. So for 2020, sa more than half naman ang mga complaints na na-receive namin is na-resolve in favor of the financial consumer.
Thank you po, Attorney. We have 5 more questions po. For international transactions, same process pa rin po ba of filing of queries and complaints and contact details from BSP?
For international transactions, as long as the financial institutions involved are supervised or regulated by the BSP, pwede nyo pa rin i-escalate sa BSP yan. Pero if the financial institution is, for example, located outside the Philippines and hindi siya branch or affiliate of a BSP-regulated institution, then outside na siya ng jurisdiction ng Bangko Sentral. So yung mga pwede lang ma-escalate sa amin are yung concerns against financial institutions na sinusupervise ng BSP. And you will see all these institutions, financial institutions, doon sa BSP website namin. So nakalist naman siya. Kasi pag mga international transactions na and nirereklamo nyo is it's a foreign institution, then hindi na siya covered ng BSP. But if, for example, yung financial institution nyo is located in the Philippines and supervised siya ng BSP, it's just that meron kayong international transaction na nagkaroon ng problema, then pwede pa rin siya ma-cover ng BSP kasi yung bank nyo naman is supervised by BSP.
Thank you po and noted po on that. For our next question, hi ma'am, I'd like to suggest po to make mandatory for all financial services to display their fees, like fund transfer fees or service charges before pa mag-consummate yung transaction so that ma-exercise ng consumer yung right to choose. Hindi nila nilalagay if magkano prior mangyari yung transaction. Malalaman mo na lang afterwards. Tamang practice po ba ito ng financial institution?
So, yes, related din siya sa earlier question na yun nga, that is actually the expectation from the financial institutions. And as I've mentioned, even in the BSP website, makikita nyo rin yung mga transaction fees, especially for electronic fund transfers. No? Nakapost din yan sa BSP website. And yun nga, the expectation talaga is, that's why if you will see no, sa mga ATMs natin, nakalagay na doon yung mga fees nila, kung how much, no, if you're going to withdraw or transact doon sa ATM na yun, makikita nyo yan. And nakapost yan dapat because we've already requested the banks to do that. So again, that's also part of the transparency and disclosure standard na kung saan nilalabas lahat ng fees and charges.
Thank you po, Attorney. For our third to the last question po, hindi ba applicable ang ARTA sa BSP and other financial institutions?
For the BSP, of course, applicable sa amin yung ARTA. So maybe nare-relate nyo doon sa turnaround time. So we do follow yung the ARTA requirements or as amended by the Ease of Doing Business Act. No? So meron kaming pina-follow na timelines for the complaints filed with the BSP. Now, doon sa mga financial institutions na hindi naman government-owned, private kasi sila, so hindi sila nakukover ng ARTA, but they do have their own timelines, as I've mentioned earlier. So each bank expect expected namin yan na dapat doon sa consumer redress mechanism nila, meron silang kanya-kanyang timelines nila. So for example, si Bank A, ang timeline niya to respond to a fraud-related concern is, for example, 2 days. Si Bank B, pwedeng ang turnaround time niya is 3 days, no? But nagkakaiba sila, pero kailangan nilang magkaroon ng mga timelines doon sa policies nila. So yun ang expectation natin from the financial institutions. So hindi siya under the ARTA po. But for BSP, we also follow yung ARTA. And also just to share, no, pag sinulatan namin yung bank, for example, nag-escalate kayo sa amin, pag sinulatan namin yung bank, meron silang timeline within which to respond. So doon sila nagkakaroon ng timeline. So for example, if initial complaint, merong 7 days, no, yung mga financial institution na sumagot, no, sa amin and also doon sa complainant. Pag medyo marami ng balikan, 5 days na lang yung turnaround time ng mga financial institution. So those are the timelines that we follow and the financial institutions follow pag inakyat nyo na sa BSP yung complaint ninyo. Thank you.
Thank you po. Yes, thank you po, Attorney. For a second to the last question po from Edna Ontiveros. Hi, my BDO bank requires me to have my biometrics of my face and fingerprints to activate or withdraw my dormant account. Is this compulsory? Are there no other options?
Okay, so for this specific requirement, as I've mentioned, yung mga banks may kanya-kanya din silang security measures, no, to offer their products and services. So for this particular bank, pwedeng yan ang maging requirement nila for that specific product or specific service. Kasi nga, we also need to think of the situation right now. Siguro kasi may maraming nahihirapan din pumunta sa kanilang bangko para i-reactivate yung mga accounts nila. So yung mga banks natin, nakakaisip din sila ng mga innovative ways on how they can still deliver their services to the public, but still complying with the health protocols. No? I'm assuming na yung mga requirements na yan, face recognition and other biometrics requirement, that's also for your protection and also para at least hindi ka na pumunta doon sa branch mo para lang i-reactivate yung account mo. Kasi admittedly, because of the lockdowns and because of the pandemic, may mga nagiging dormant accounts kasi hindi na nga kayo nakakapunta sa mga branches nyo, di ba? So that's a way of continuing yung delivery of services nila. But before you do that, talagang make sure na you are communicating with your bank. No? Kasi baka it's just a way of getting your information then. So make sure that talagang legit yung requirement na yan, communicate with your bank. Kayo na yung tumawag, kayo yung pag-coordinate with your bank. So for that specific service then ay walang ini-impose ang Bangko Sentral, no? Just ang expectation is talagang kailangan maging secure yung paggawa ng yung verification and identity verification. So yan yung ating policy when it comes to validation and offering yung mga ganyang types of services ng mga financial institutions natin. Kasi we even actually allowed na yung e-KYC or electronic know your customer policy natin. So inallow na rin yun ng BSP given nga sa nangyaring pandemic kasi mahirap talaga yung pagpunta sa mga branches natin.
Thank you po, Attorney. Yes, thank you po and noted po on that. For our final question po, just this month, BSP has ordered the closure of a rural bank. As consumers po, should we be wary of weak and problematic banks? How can we avoid them?
So yung mga closure of banks naman, no, we have guidelines on that. So may mga hindi sila nami-meet na mga requirements. And also as as part din of disclosure and transparency, nakikita nyo rin naman yung mga financial statements ng mga bangko, no? Hindi lang sa rural bank industry, but it's also a requirement under the law na kailangan i-publish nila yung mga financial statements nila. And so kayo as consumers, you also need to do your research, your due diligence, tingnan kung okay pa ba yung performance ng bangko ninyo. And right now, with social media and also all the information na makukuha ninyo agad-agad, no? So you have all this information about your financial institution. Makukuha nyo rin naman yan sa websites nila, and also sa BSP website, you can also check para makita ninyo yung performance ng bangko. So yung sa mga closure naman, this is a regular process, no, na parang tinitingnan din ng BSP para mas maging stable yung ating financial industry. So, we have financial stability para, kasi syempre as much as possible, ang gusto natin is lahat ng mga financial institutions natin is nag-ooperate ng maayos, stable sila, they have enough capitalization. So all of these things we need to consider pag nag-ooperate ng isang bangko. No? So huwag din kayong matakot na nagsasara ang BSP. We assure you na lahat naman ito ay in accordance with our guidelines, and also may mga basis tayo for closure. But at the same time, you also look at the other institutions. No? The information is out there, so you can also check kung okay pa ba yung bangko ninyo or hindi.
Yes po. Thank you very much po, Attorney. And thank you din po sa ating mga participants na nagtanong ngayong umaga. Again, Attorney Sharina, thank you for answering all the questions raised today. We hope that our participants have learned something from this webinar, especially po on handling any forms of fraud when transacting online. Before we close the session, may we ask Attorney Sharina po kung saan po kayo pwede makontak ng mga participants para sa other concerns nila, and kung meron din po kayong short message for our participants.
Just a short message lang, no? And I would also like to reiterate yung nasabi natin kanina na consumer protection is a shared responsibility. As consumers, kailangan natin maging mapanuri, mapagmatsyag sa ating mga transactions. And of course, your regulators like the BSP is always here to provide redress and guidance, and also the regulatory framework and environment where you can be assured and confident that your transactions are safe and done in an efficient way. And also, as to the contact details naman, you can go to our website, the bsp.gov.ph, and then hanapin nyo yung consumer protection icon namin. So, nandun lahat ng aming mga contact details. And also, if you will be given a copy of this, of my presentation, so the contact details of our office is there. You can also send email to consumeraffairs@bsp.gov.ph. So I think that will be provided naman by DTI. So also thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to share with you our efforts and BSP's policies on consumer protection. And I hope nga na sama-sama tayo sa pagsugpo ng mga scams na nangyayari. Thank you also to DTI and to all the DTI regional offices. I've seen doon sa participants ang daming nag-attend from other regions. And good afternoon to everyone.
Yes, thank you po, Attorney, for your time today. And at this moment po, we are now closing our webinar session. Again, maraming salamat po sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and to Attorney Sharina De Vera Yap. And mula po sa Consumer Protection Group at DTI CPAB, maraming salamat din po sa ating mga participants na nakasama natin ngayong araw. Sana po ay marami kayong natutunan sa ating webinar today, at sana rin po samahan niyo pa po kami sa aming mga susunod na webinars. Our announcements po will be posted in our social media accounts. So for more updates, please like, follow our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitter accounts DTI Consumer Care and subscribe to our YouTube channel DTI Philippines. And para naman po sa mga gustong makakuha ng kopya ng presentation material, huwag niyo rin pong kalimutang i-accomplish at i-submit ang client satisfaction feedback form para makakuha po ng link kung saan maaaring i-download ang presentation na ginamit ngayong umaga. Muli ako po si Una May Mortejo na nagpapaalalang maging wais, mapanuri at mapagmatsyag na mamimili. Salamat po.
Para sa ating mamamayang Pilipino, para iwas daya dapat wais at alisto. Mainam maging mapagmatsyag at mapanuri tayo. Palakasin ang boses ng ating mga consumer. Dapat tama bawat presyo at serbisyo. Produktong pasado lalo ang mga pangunahing bilihin. Ang kalidad ng mga produkto at serbisyo ay pangalagaan ng lahat. Tayo ay panalo. Layunin ng BTI ito.
Ipatupad Price Act 7581, Consumer Act 7394, Product Standards 4109, for Consumer Care at iba pa, tayang 1384.
Ipalaganap karapatan at tungkulin. Kaalamang tama sa consumer ibahagi. Tulay sa kaunlaran, kalakalan ay palakasin. Ito ang pagbabago para sa ikabubuti natin. Dapat tapat bawat presyo at serbisyo. Produktong pasado lalo ang mga pangunahing bilihin. Ang kalidad ng mga produkto at serbisyo ay pangalagaan ng lahat. Tayo ay panalo. Layunin ng BTI ito.
Ipatupad Price Act 7581, Consumer Act 7394, Product Standards 4109, for Consumer Care at iba pa, tayang 1384.
Dapat tama, dapat tapat, mula sa DTI ito.